How do you do, friends? How are you? How is life? Welcome back to another Forgotten Templar video. Today we're going to be doing something a bit different. Today, the Forgotten Templar will be reading you guys bedtime stories. So cuddle up with your favorite stuffed animals. Cuddle with your favorite pillow, I don't really care what you cuddle with. Get comfortable and get cozy, because we're in for some great stories. This story, the first we will be reading, is the story of the darkest darkness. In Morrowind, both worshippers and sorcerers summon Lesser Daedra and Bound Daedra as servant and instruments. Most Daedric servants can be summoned by sorcerers only for very brief periods, within the most fragile and tenuous frameworks of command and binding. This fortunately limits their capacity for mischief, though is only a few minutes. Most of these servants can do terrible harm to their summoners as well as their enemies. Worshippers may bind other Daedric servants to this plane throughout rituals and pacts. Such arrangements result in the Daedric servant remaining on this plane indefinitely, or at least until their bodily manifestations on this plane are destroyed, precipitating their supernatural essences back to oblivion. Whenever Daedra are encountered at Daedric ruins or in tombs, they are almost invariably long-term visitors to our plane. Likewise, lesser entities bound by their Daedra lords into weapons and armor may be summoned for brief periods, or may persist indefinitely, so long as they are not destroyed and banished. The class of bound weapons and bound armor summoned by temple followers and conjurers are examples of short-term bindings. Daedra artifacts like Mehrunes' Razor and the Mask of Clavicus Vile are examples of long-term bindings. The Tribunal Temple of Morrowind, I completely forgot to read that last part. The veneration of Daedra has lesser spirits subservient to immortal Almsivi, the Truan godhead of Almalexia. Yes, I can read, I promise you. Sothasil and Vivek. These subordinate Daedra are divided into the good Daedra and the bad Daedra. The good Daedra have willingly submitted to the authority of Almsivi. The bad Daedra are rebels who defy Almsivi. See, I got it that time. Treacherous kin, or more often adversaries than allies. The good Daedra are Bothia, Asura, and Mafala. The hunger is a powerful and violent lesser Daedra associated with Bothia, father of plots, and Cineas, long-limbed, long-tailed creature with a beast-skulled head, noted for its paralyzing touch and its ability to disintegrate weapons and armor. The winged Twilight is a messenger of Asura, god of dusk and dawn. Winged Twilights resemble the feral harpies of the West, though the feminine aspects of the winged Twilights are more ravishing, and their long, sharp, hooked tails are immeasurably more deadly. Spider Daedra are the servants of Mafala, taking the form of spider humanoid centaurs, with a naked upper head, torso, and arms of human proportions mounted on the 8 legs and armored carapace of a giant spider. Unfortunately, these Daedra are so fierce and irrational that they cannot be trusted to heed the commands of the Spinner. As a consequence, few sorcerers are willing to either summon or bind such creatures in Morrowind. The bad Daedra are Mehrunes' Doggin, Malekith, Shigaroth, and Molag Bal, pardon my French. 3 lesser Daedra associated with Mehrunes' Doggin. The agile and pesky Scamp, the ferocious and beast-like Clanfear, and the noble and deadly Dramora. The crocodile-headed humanoid Daedra called the Daedroth is a servant of Molag Bal, while the giant but dim-witted Agrim is a servant of Malekith. Shigarath's lesser Daedria, the Golden Saint, a half-clothed human female in appearance, is highly resistant to magic, and a dangerous spellcaster. Another type of lesser Daedria, often encountered in Morrowind, is the Atronach, or Elemental Daedria. Atronachs have no binding kinship or ailments with the Daedria lords, serving one realm or another at whim, shifting sides according to seduction, compulsion, or opportunity. And that was the book of Darkest Darkness. Onward to our next book. The Elder Scrolls. No. Next, we will be reading Immortal Blood, also known by Anonymous. This guy's really good at writing stories, I'm telling you guys. The moons and stars were hidden from sight, making that particular quiet night especially dark. The town guard had to carry torches to make their rounds, but the man who came to call at my chapel carried no light with him. I came to learn that Movarth, pardon if I say this in a weird way, Dickin? Or Dickwin? I'm not trying to say it inappropriately. Or Pequin? I'm gonna say Dickwin, because I think that's what it is. It's not to be inappropriate, I'm just saying it sounds easier. Could see in the dark almost as well as the light. An excellent talent, considering his interests were exclusively nocturnal. One of my acolytes brought him to me, and from the look of him, I at first thought he was in need of healing. He was pale to the point of opalescence, with a face that looked like it had once been very handsome before some unspeakable suffering. The dark circles under his eyes bespoke exhaustion, but the eyes themselves were alert, intense, almost insane. He quickly dismissed my notion that he himself was ill, though he did not want to discuss a specific disease. Vampirism, he said, and then paused at I don't even know what that is. Look, I was told that you were someone I should seek out for helping understand it. Who told you that? I asked, with a smile. Not really sure. Is that a C? We're gonna call her Cassina? Cassina Gray. I immediately remembered her. A brave, beautiful knight who had needed my assistance separating fact from fiction on the subject of the vampire. It had been 2 years, and I had never heard whether my advice had proved effective. You've spoken to her? Pardon, wrong person. You've spoken to her. How is her ladyship? I asked. Dead, Movarth replied coldly, and then, responding to my shock, he added, to perhaps soften the blow. She said her advice was invaluable. Your advice was invaluable. At least, for the one vampire. When last I talked to her, she was tracking another. It killed her. Then the advice I gave was not enough, I sighed. Why do you think it would be enough for you? I was a teacher once myself, years ago, he said. Not in a university, a trainer in the Fighters Guild. But I know that if a student doesn't ask the right questions, the teacher cannot be responsible for his failure. I intend to ask you the right questions. And that he did. For hours, he asked questions, and I answered what I could. But he never volunteered any information about himself. He never smiled. He only studied me with those intense eyes of his, committing every word I said to memory. Finally, I turned the questioning around. You said you were a trainer at the Fighters Guild. Are you on an assignment for them? No, he said curtly, and finally I could detect some weariness in those feverish eyes of his. I would like to continue this tomorrow night, if I could. I need to get some sleep and absorb this. You sleep during the day, I smiled. To my surprise... Oh wait, that's the same... Does that... Oh, her name is Tassini. Pardon me, guys. Sorry for interrupting the story, but I just realized her name was Tassini. Sorry. Continuing. To my surprise, he returned the smile, though it was more of a grimace. When tracking your prey, you adapt their habits. The next day, he did return for more questions. These ones very specific. He wanted to know about the vampires of Eastern Skyrim. I told him about the most powerful tribe, the Volkahar, or Volkabar. Paranoid and cruel, whose very breath could freeze their victims' blood in the veins. I explained to him how they lived beneath the ice of remote and haunted lakes, never venturing into the world of man except to feed. Movarth Deakwin listened carefully and asked more questions into the night, until, at last, he was ready to leave. I will not see you for a few days, he said, but I will return, and tell you how helpful your information has been. True to his word, the man returned to my chapel shortly after midnight 4 days later. There was a fresh scar on his cheek, but he was smiling, that grim but satisfied smile of his. Your advice helped me very much, he said. But you should know that the Volkahar have an additional ability that you didn't mention. They can reach through the ice of their lakes without breaking it. It was quite a nasty surprise being grabbed from below without any warning. How remarkable, I said with a laugh. And terrifying. You're lucky you survived. I don't believe in luck. I believe in knowledge and training. The information helped me, and my skill of melee combat sealed the bloodsucker's fate. I've never believed in weaponry or any kind. Too many unknowns. Even the best swordsman has created a flawed blade, but you know what your body is capable of. I know I can land 1,000 blows without losing my balance, provided I get the first strike. The first strike? So you must never be surprised. That is why I came to you, said Movarth. You know more than anyone alive about these monsters, and all their cursed varieties across the land. Now you must tell me about the vampires of Northern Valenwood. I did as he asked, and once again, his questions taxed my knowledge. There were many tribes to cover. The Bonsamu, who were indistinguishably from Bosmar, except when seen by candlelight. The Kirilth, who could disintegrate into mist. The Yekef, or Vekef, if I'm getting that wrong, pardon me. No, it's Yekef, who swallowed men whole. The dread Telbith, who preyed on children, eventually taking their place in the family, waiting patiently for years before murdering them all in an unnatural way. Hunger. Once again, he bade me farewell, promising to return in a few weeks, and once again, he returned as he said, just after midnight. This time, Movarth had no fresh scars, but he again had new information. You were wrong about the Kirillith being unable to vaporize when pushed underwater, he said, patting my shoulder fondly. Fortunately, they cannot travel far in their mist form, and I was able to track it down. It must have surprised it, fearfully. Your field knowledge is becoming impressive, I said. I should have had an acolyte like you decades ago. Now tell me, he said, of the vampires of Cyrodiil. Pardon. I told him what I could. There was but one tribe in Cyrodiil, a powerful clan who had ousted all other competitors, much like the Imperials themselves had done. Their true name was unknown, lost in history, but they were experts of concealment. If they kept themselves well fed, they were indistinguishable from living people. They were cultured, more civilized than the vampires of the provinces, preferring to feed on victims while they were asleep and unaware. Hint, hint, that's kind of what happens to you if you become a vampire. They will be difficult to surprise, Movarth frowned. but I will seek one out and tell you what I learn. And then you will tell me of the vampires of High Rock, and Hammerfell, and elsewhere, and Black Marsh, and Morrowind, and the Somerset Isles, yes?" I nodded, knowing then that this was a man on an eternal quest. He wouldn't be satisfied with but the barest hint of how things were. He needed to know it all. He did not return for a month, and on that night he did. I could see his frustration and despair, though there were no lights burning in my chapel. "I failed," he said, as I lit a candle. "You were right. I could not find a single one." I brought the light up to my face and smiled. He was surprised, even stunned, by the pallor of my face, the flesh, the dark hunger in my ageless eyes, and the teeth. Oh yes, I think the teeth definitely surprised the man who could not afford to be surprised. "I haven't fed in 72 hours, I explained, as I fell on him. He did not land the first blow, or the last. Alright guys, that was the second book, Immortal Blood. I really liked that one. That one, when I first read it, insane. This is the book that got me into reading all the other ones. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will definitely be doing more of these videos just because of the fact that I enjoy reading them. I love learning about these books. These things are awesome. I did not know I could have this much fun. But like I said, thank you for watching my wonderful Templar brothers and sisters, and I will catch you guys in the next video.